the images, as I expressed earlier, the images horrified us in terms of what they suggest and what they conjure up in terms of not only our nation's history, but unfortunately the fact that that page of history has not been turned entirely. But I will not prejudge the facts. I do not in any way want to impair the integrity of the investigative process.
The images were horrifying? Our nation's history? I'm sorry, what? All that was in response to a Border Patrol agent trying to stop a Haitian illegal immigrant from coming into the country. Joining me now, Congressman from Louisiana, Mike Johnson, joins me. Congressman, the fact that the DHS secretary knew that all that was a lie before he got up and gave that press conference, how in the world does this human being still have a job?
That's a great question. You know, on the House Judiciary Committee, we have addressed this with him under oath on a couple of occasions. There's a long list now, a litany of offenses that he has been engaged in since he took office. And this is among the most egregious. We know now, because of emails that have surfaced, that he knew hours before that press conference that the narrative about the whipping by the Border Patrol agents was false. He knew it. And he decided to stand out there in front of those cameras and those microphones and lie to repeat the narrative that he knew was false and to slander the Border Patrol. If the man had any dignity at all, he'd be asking for forgiveness over that. And if the media had any dignity, they'd be demanding an answer from him on why he lied to them. But we're not seeing any of that. So when we get the gavels back after this election cycle, you'll see accountability finally for this secretary.
I continue to hear, I'm not putting words in your mouth at all, but I continue to hear from congressmen that I know and talk to that whenever the subject of impeachment comes up, that Mayorkas may be in very, very, very deep trouble for things that you just pointed out. Is that what you're hearing, or is that what you're doing?
Well, listen, I've been clear. I've been on the record. When he was in front of us last April, I told him he'd only been on the job for a few months, and we could tell that he was either ill-equipped for the job or he was intentionally engaging in, for example, opening the border and openly defying federal immigration laws. That's a serious problem. And I told him while he was sitting in front of us in a viral video that he needed to dust off his resume because we would be in charge again. And if the Biden administration and the president did not take care of this problem, then we would have to. We have an obligation. The people are losing their faith in these institutions because of leaders like this. And I think he's just an egregious failure.
I'm glad you brought up losing faith in institutions, because it's something we talk about a lot. It's not that they're losing it, they've lost it. The FBI itself, DOJ itself, when people, half the country, at least when they hear these letters now, they roll their eyes or they sneer at these things. Congressman, that's how nations end if you don't trust your institutions anymore. How do you get trust back? Because they don't seem interested in earning my trust back or anyone's trust back.
Well, they're not. And the persons and the so-called leaders who don't have that interest have to be replaced. They have to be removed. The American people have to see that there is accountability. And we're ensuring that that's going to happen if the Republicans retake the majority in this election cycle, and I believe we will. And in our Judiciary Committee, we have a broad jurisdiction over the Department of Justice and the FBI, and we're tracking them. You know, we've sent over 100 letters requesting information and details on some of these crazy decisions they've made, and they've not been responsive at all. So just a couple of days ago, Jim Jordan and I, he'll be the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, I'll be the chair of the Constitution Subcommittee. We sent a notice to the Attorney General himself, Merrick Garland, and told him to preserve those records because we will have hearings, the American people will see this, and we're going to ensure accountability. We have to, because the people will not be able to have faith in their institutions again unless we do this.
Okay, now, I've been asking people in your position this question because I'm really genuinely curious. You haul these people out there for hearings, and I'm glad you are. I'm glad you and Congressman Jordan are doing that. The FBI is going to do, I know you know this, what they've always done. Sorry, we can't comment on an ongoing investigation, or it's, well, I'm not sure about that, I'll get back to you. There are never any answers in these things. So fast forwarding to that moment, then what do you do? Because something has to be done from there.
Yeah, well, we're making a commitment to follow the truth where it leads. Congress has certain authority under the Constitution. The death penalty, so to speak, the nuclear option is impeachment. The Democrats have cheapened that because they used it for partisan political purposes. We're talking about restoring the rule of law. We're talking about making sure that our public officials are accountable. And so you're not going to see us back down from that. We'll follow the truth wherever it leads. And if it leads to impeachable offenses, we'll pursue that as well. We'll send that over to the Senate and see what happens. If we have a Republican majority in the Senate, that's where the trial will be held, and we'll see what happens. But I think that some of these officials, I think Mayorkas, I think even Merrick Garland, if they're held to account and they see that we're serious and the heat is turned up appropriately, I think some of these people may resign. I expect Mayorkas would, and we'll have to see what happens.
Which brings us to, speaking of impeachment, it brings us to Joe Biden. Now, I obviously don't want the next Republican Congress to spend every waking moment impeaching everyone in the Biden administration, but I distinctly remember Donald Trump being impeached for what was called quid pro quo, and we now find out today that Joe Biden despicably told OPEC not to cut oil production until after the midterms. Now, and then he's threatening them, by the way, since they didn't. Now, that sounds an awful lot like an impeachable defense or offense if we're going off precedent here, does it not?
Well, it would under the Democrat standard for sure. I served on the impeachment defense team twice for President Trump because it was completely baseless, of course, openly partisan exercise. And we were on record many times saying that's not what impeachment is for. But when you have offenses like this that are so egregious and so in your face, again, we have to follow the truth where it leads. This energy policy from the Biden administration is absolutely astounding. I mean, they have sold out to this climate agenda, and they care not what pain it inflicts upon the American people. They're going hat in hand begging OPEC to increase production to meet our demand and our need here. And when they don't do it, it's as if that they personally offended the president or something. By the way, the Democrats' measures to get back at Saudi Arabia for this are crazy. They're talking about putting an embargo on arms sales to the Saudis. Oh, well, that would hurt U.S. defense contractors and deny them the revenue when the Saudis would just buy the arms from someone else, some other entity or some other nation. They're talking about pulling troops out of Saudi Arabia, the small U.S. forces that we have there, but they're critical to maintain stability and prevent aggression from Iran. So they just have no answers, and their policy is just insane, and it's causing great pain to the American people. And I think that's one of the big reasons that we're going to have a legitimate red wave election on November 8th.
Congressman, I appreciate it. Come back soon.
Thank you. Appreciate it.